May I request the next panelist and the moderator for the session, Esports in India are rising phenomena. That is something that is a talk of the town right now. And we would like to hear it from Abhishek Issar, founder of UNIV Sportatech, founding member of Federation Electronic Sports Association of India. May I request Abhishek to be on the stage, please? I also request Anurag Khurana, founder of NewGen Gaming, Penta eSports. May I have Shiva Nandy, founder of Sky eSports, to join us on the stage, please.
We wait for Mr. Anurag Khurana to arrive. I'm sure he's around somewhere. He's already been notified that the session started. He'll be joining soon. First up, Shiva, thanks again. We continue to build the esports story in different shapes and forms, so welcome aboard again.
Thanks for having Abhishek.
I think the compliments and commendations must be extended to CII for continually building the IDGS movement and narrative of having to sort of bring the industry together and look at gaming in a very holistic sense. And taking the right sort of a message ahead to the policymakers as well, the government. I think that's a very important piece. The good thing is that we've pretty much covered multiple aspects of gaming so far in various deliberations since morning. And I think the better thing is that we are now focused on our favorite subject, which is electronic sports. I think it's fantastic to have heard all the other luminaries through the day. We have Anurag walking into the room right now. So to your embarrassment, Anurag, you should know that you're being awaited on the dais. So I was iterating that while we've covered various aspects of gaming through the day, welcome Anurag. The good thing is that this discussion is focused on a conversation and a topic which is very focused from a perspective of where even the policy outlook sits at. I've been invited here from the dual capacities of both the being an entrepreneur, having to lead a venture which is looking at sports, media, entertainment. Esports is an important subset of that. And also, the other is where we are taking and building a large-scale policy discussion and dialogue from a federation perspective. That's a conversation that's been in the making for over 3 years. Both the gentlemen on my left and right have played pivotal role in supporting initiatives of the Federation of Electronic Sports Association in India. So again, thank you so much, both of you gentlemen. I think without much further deliberations, it was a watershed moment recently when the International Olympic Committee took their acknowledgement of e-sport as a sport to the next level. And we heard the announcement of Olympic esports games being awarded to Saudi Arabia. I think that was a big moment in the industry and also something which validates the involvement of various government leaderships across the world. Needless to say, the paradigm shift that's happened before and after that announcement is that even the Indian government, which has taken measured steps in development of esports or recognition of esport as a sport, is now going to be very aggressively taking some measures to make sure that India has a fair representation when it comes to time of hosting or participating at the Olympic Games for esports next year. So without much ado, Shiva, since you were on the dais first, so of course the honor goes to you. You've been part of the esports development ecosystem for a fairly long time. Sky Sports has done fantastic work in having to have developed esports ground up. What does this announcement mean to you of esports getting the recognition of the esports Olympics next year?
So I'm into esports last 5 years and overall gaming almost like 15 years. So if you ask me, 15 years I was into this, but this announcement, the Saudi Riyadh is going to host the first ever esports Olympics is a great thing happen in my life and for everyone in globally who are gamers. So it's going to be like set like lot of expectations in India as well as globally also, because it's going to be open a lot of market India as well as global, and it's going to be create new opportunities in terms of career, in terms of revenue, in terms of multiple things, and it's a big statement given by the Olympic Committee.
Fantastic. And that's something that we anticipate will also have a catalytic effect on operations of organizations like yours, which is also already currently building esports. I'll come back to the nuances of what your vision, mission, next steps look like. But very quickly, I'll move to the gentleman on my left. Just for everybody's introduction, Anurag Khurana has been part of the esports ecosystem, and I can conveniently say for at least close to a decade and a half, if not more. He has played an important role on being part of one of the world's leading publishers, opening and managing the India market. He's been a tech entrepreneur, has also, of course, very importantly, been building Penta, which is a fantastic organization as part of NewGen Gaming, looking at grassroots esports development. Anurag, needless to say, you've also been part of some policy conversations, but what does an announcement like this mean to you, having to have been part of this ecosystem for such a long time?
Thanks, Abhishek, for the intro. I would have been able to put it much better than you. So if you look at this announcement, it's a great announcement, but how will it impact us as Indians is more crucial question that I have. Like, if you look at Esports World Cup, we are just representation of one athlete, just one athlete, in a nation which is so big on gaming per se. Having one representation is not good enough. So I think we need more support from government, the bodies, and everybody to make it successful and happen for us. That's one. Secondly, bigger challenge is that most of the, at least the popular games in India, are games which are India specific. BGMI is only India. Free Fire India, when it comes, is only India. I know, best of my knowledge, games like Valorant, etc., will not be part of the Olympics. So, until publishers are involved in the region, I don't think it will become a big success, because for the grassroots also, the brand looks for viewership, which unfortunately we can't get, especially on titles like this. So that will be the looking at struggle which I feel like.
Which brings me to my next immediate question. It's been announced that 2025 will be the year that the games will be hosted. My assumption is it will be, let's say, November, December. We're technically looking at a period of 14 odd months. Nowhere in the sports industry is that timeline ever commensurate with having to identify talent, give them a platform to train, give them exposure, and then eventually give them a platform to. India definitely needs a lot to do in this space, and therefore such consultations are very critical. What would be your advice to the decision makers, in this case, of course, the government? And needless to say, the Honorable Prime Minister has very publicly taken a stance of accepting the importance of e-sport. I think in the last couple of months, he's given more than one interview highlighting that esports is now a medal sport. And India's aspirations as part of the Olympic movement is known globally today. So what would be your suggestions at this point in time? Or what is it that you would seek from the government? Of course, regulatory outlook is there. But the government, even if it says, okay, fantastic, we welcome the publishers to come to India, it's not an overnight access, it's not an overnight story. So let's just say, focused on the Olympic narrative, what would be your expectations from the government, that 2-3 measures that will help create a quick ecosystem to be able to identify talent?
In that case, let me take you back to 2022. You only organized that session with Kiran Rijiju ji at that time. If that initiative would have taken forward, I don't think we would be having that discussion today, because he was very clear that he wants to promote esports. He said, industry is here, come give me your suggestions. Unfortunately, he moved out. the next minister came. Of course, he had his vision, but unfortunately this took a backseat. But going by that whole narrative back there, I think what we need is the right now definition of esports in terms of government. It's just a multi-sport event, which doesn't mean much to me. Even if somebody asks me what is a multi-sport event, I'm like, that kind of situation. I know what it means, but that's not giving clear confidence to people that yes, they would like to see. The thing is that the kids are playing. Only we need parents to allow them to play publicly, not playing behind the closed doors. So with that thing looking forward, we need government to come and support esports, give it official recognition in terms of a sporting event, because that's what esports is. It's a sport, not just gaming. So I think that's the only thing we're looking at. Then of course, with the government involvement, we can take our grassroots program down to every state and then try to identify. But I agree with you, 14 months is not enough time.
No, I'm with you. I think, but to give the government also credit, I think it was 2022 December, as you rightly suggested, that esports was fundamentally parked under sports.
Yes.
And I think that is the most important decision that the central government at that point in time could have taken. I think since then at least 3 state governments, because sports is a state subject, have very progressively and aggressively taken the decision to adopt esport as a sport. Having said that, Shiva, we are looking at a realistic concern. You guys have been the funnels for creating talent. Another 14, 15 odd months at tops. Very clearly, the government can take decisions, but their decisions are always usually at a macro level, even though they may have a micro impact. But the outcomes will not be commensurate with the upcoming. What are 1 or 2 or 3 suggestions that you would want to make to the government to be able to sort of fast track organizations like yours and see development of talent?
See, the first most important thing is we need a officially regulated federation, because so far Indian esports athletes participated in Asian Games, Commonwealth Games without any proper proper tournaments or proper eligibility criteria. So the first most important is we need a common body who can execute the qualifiers in the right way. And second thing, we need to wait for the Olympic Committee to come back. What are the games going to be present in the Olympic? That's important things, because we at Sky Sports, right from scratch, we follow the holistic approach. We diversified into multiple esports titles, not only stick with the single esports title. So we've been doing tournaments for across 8 to 10 different esports titles. So whatever game titles the IOC is going to announce, there are players in India already. But important thing is like how, as a whole, India esports is growing. Everyone will agree. But as a state body, as a state subject, still it has to be improved. So like how Ranji Trophy, cricket is putting a lot of efforts for Ranji Trophy. Likewise, the grassroots on each state, like you mentioned, already 3 state government is already working with the grassroots tournaments, as well as I personally working with Tamil Nadu, Karnataka and different sort of state governments to build the grassroots programs. So if you ask me, the states, the grassroots system is important, and the tournament titles. And of course, once the tournament title announced, we have to work with the publishers very closely as a tournament organizer to evaluate what is the format and everything. And then we have to build the sustainable, the grassroots system to make the players to participate in the tournament. And more than that, the regulation is very important, and we need a official regulated federation who can assign the tournament organizer to execute the qualifiers.
Understood. I think very important point made. A regulatory outlook is critical, but I think, of course, in a scenario like this, I've been in the sports industry for a fairly long time, and I've had these discussions with you gentlemen at different stages. With Anurag, of course, I recall having to have had a couple of sessions. Fact is that sports also features more than one body, often in one discipline, and I'll expand this example to a global level. Till 1 year ago, there were 2 international federations, and this is for the acknowledgement and knowledge for all of you sort of attendees over here as well. That there are 2 international bodies, but the International Olympic Committee has taken a very independent stand, both in its definition and an outlook. And I think eventually that's the most formal approach that any government will be able to sort of adopt as well. And I see therefore what may emerge as a hybrid model, right? Where let's say the titles from the Olympic Virtual Series, which was hosted last year in Singapore, may end up being, or at least some of them might end up being featured in the Olympic Games. Now obviously when the Olympics are being hosted, I don't see a handful few titles being hosted. It might be a plethora of multiple titles, because we are not talking of games that require indulgences beyond, maybe in some certain cases beyond a few minutes. And if you've got to sustain a large event like that, you must have multiple titles. So that conundrum, I understand, exists, which brings me to my next question. Let's say it's the Olympic Virtual Series and the titles from that. India, I don't see currently at this point in time having a massive audience base to be able to address it. Anurag, any suggestions or point of view that you would have?
So I think the way my outlook is, it might have bring some of the titles from that virtual one from Olympics, but I think since it's a Olympic esports, that the titles would be much more mainstream, keeping of course their guidelines in place, no violence, no blood, etc., etc. But there would be games which are actual esports titles also part of it. I think we should be ready to participate in those at least, because as you said, from that virtual series, I don't think we have the infrastructure in place to train those guys right now. So that is my personal outlook. That, but again, as Shiva said, we'll have to wait for the list to be out. But I think what my take is that the list would include some prominent esports titles with some restrictions, of course, and then the other ones. So,
as a quick extension, one good milestone for even the government and all of the stakeholders to consider is the Asian Games that got concluded last year. That featured quite a plethora of games, of which FIFA was one, PUBG was another. So in India, of course, BGMI comes closest to that, of course. So I definitely see 2 medal sports coming out of this extrapolation. I'm just given, just for the sake of everybody's ease of understanding, idea is that, okay, if these can be considered closest to being, chess.com, by the way, is another title which was featured in the virtual series. So the idea is that, you know, these are titles which the governments now, and on the state side, start looking at a little more seriously, because at least there's a roadmap and a pathway to essentially earning medals. So over and above, any other sort of titles you foresee, or you'd like to comment on this, or anything else with respect to?
I'm okay commenting on this also. So there are other titles also, like League of Legends was part of those Asian Games. We have not a great base, but we have a base. We should be training our athletes in that, not saying, oh, this team will go. It's not about team, it's about representing the country, which could be mix and match from all the teams. So I think that whole mindset also, we need to bring in esports, especially in India, that when you're representing the country, you are going as a country unit, not as that particular team. I think that's the biggest concern I have whenever we are participating in any international event, including Asian Games, where there's a team event. We send a team, a pre-made team, not get 5 great players from different teams and combine. And of course, they have to look at the also whether they can play together or not as a team, but that has to be independent unit from the team under the banner they are playing. So that's my take on this.
Correct. And I think it's a valid point. More so that I would recommend that maybe this should be part of, and I would request CII maybe even to collaborate these recommendations that can formally be submitted to the government, because from what I understand, and I'm addressing this to Madhurima who's in front of me and the entire CII contingent, that now is when the government is already contemplating on decisions that must be taken in this space. You're doing some fantastic work as CII, but I think it's important to be able to help articulate that there's a real challenge. There are only a few medal sports which may be popular in India at this point in time, and we don't know what's really coming up for the Olympic sports. So, Shiva, any sense of roadmap that you'd like to relay and share, because you've also been dealing with multiple publishers. Maybe you could talk about that as well.
Yeah, so like for your question, we don't know what the esports title is going to be in Olympics. Let us wait and see what are the titles. But as at Sky Sports, we always work with a different publisher, like you mentioned. We brought Pokemon to India, and we are working officially with Pokemon India, and we are building Pokemon Unite, the entire grassroots system and the Tier 1 scene in India. And recently, we partnered with a Korean company called Nexon Gaming. So there is a game called The Finals, and we are building the grassroots system and Tier 1. It's like we are building the pyramid structure for that game. We are hosting a collegiate event across 150 colleges, and also we partnered with cafe, almost like 100 cafes in India. On top of that, we are working with 30 to 40 gaming creators, and we are building the tournament also. So we are building the whole ecosystem for the finals and the Pokemon Unite, and as well as we are building Counter-Strike in India, and our vision is to put India map on the global map. So we recently hosted Sky Sport Championship. It's one of the premium IP, and we brought 11 international teams who are globally top 20. So and next we are doing again the CS2 event in Bangalore, and again we are bringing 8 international teams. So we at Sky Sports trying to find out the way how to put India in the global scene, not just in one esports title. We are working with the 5-6 titles, and we are working with the multiple global publishers. On top of that, we should not forget our own game called Real Cricket, which is the only esports title built by Indian developer, and we are building a Real Cricket also as big. Right now, the game is around having a 250 million user base, and we are working with the franchise league for the game also, and we are planning to put Real Cricket also as a global IP.
I think fantastic insights. Everybody knows now what Sky Sports is doing. And many commendations to you for all the hard work that you've put in behind it. Real Cricket is one fantastic product. We can say this very proudly because our organization is also definitely supporting this.
We associated with the FEAI, and first ever we done 25 states qualifiers, and we did a national event, and almost around 100,000 participants participated across 25 states.
Yes, of course. Those were fun days, and developing a inherently made product, which is from within India, was a fantastic initiative. I think with the fact that cricket is now part of the Olympics, and 2028 it will feature in the Los Angeles Olympics, my assumption is that the IOC will leave no stone unturned to make cricket an Olympic sport. So Shiva, I think there is more work that needs to be done, and why Shiva alone? Of course, we need Anurag and many other sort of leading tournament organizers to build this space. But having said that, since you're engaged with so many publishers, one question that sort of hounds me sometimes when, I get to hear all sorts of numbers in the market, right? Some consulting firm is throwing some fantastic numbers, etc. What is the real base for India's talent pool, if I were to ask a simple question? And just for the ease of understanding for everybody else, I understand that India's top team owners would be what, to the tune of 30, 40, Anurag, is that? Less than that. So, are we looking at a talent pool of, let's say, a fantastic game like BGMI to be less than about 300?
1,000?
Well, I'm talking about the tier 1.
Yeah, so like in India, there are about 250 to 300 Tier 1 teams for BGMI. And then like I mentioned, Pokemon in it, there are about 200 teams are there. But if you see overall, we can differentiate casual gamers into esports players. If you talk about casual gamers in India, it is coming around 500 to 600 million. But when it comes to the professional esports player, right now it's about 600 to 700,000 user base, and which we are expecting around like 1.5 million in 2 years' time. Not just one title, but across all the esports titles.
Got it. Anurag, your views on this?
I think the numbers are much less. I don't have a count on the numbers, but numbers are much less than what Shiva has said, but I might be wrong. But I think what is more important is, let's not look at T1. I think for me the numbers is across the tiers. I don't believe in T1 because T1 is the people who got recognition, but there are so many players who have not got recognition. One team I can talk about is Team Tamilas. They were not part of T1, but they performed brilliantly in the recently concluding BGMI series. So let's not go by T1, but otherwise also the numbers are much less. If you look at the professional esports, yes, I agree, casual numbers are, especially those thrown by the consulting firms. My issue with those numbers is that they also calculate the RMG player numbers also. So let's not look at those numbers, but I think esports numbers are less than 100,000 if you ask me, who want to pursue that professionally. As a casual player, yes, those numbers are much higher, but what I call as proper esports athletes who would participate one tournament after other, that's the number I'm talking about.
So Anurag, 100,000 आपने बता दिया. How do you advise the state government leadership then to take a formal approach in adopting e-sport as a sport, right? जिससे उनके number भी बढ़े. Don't mind I'm speaking Hindi English, but I think that's fine. But equally importantly, it's the parent sitting at home who should feel encouraged that, you know, my kid is not wasting time, because so long as I see esports today at the same space where sports used to be 20 years back. ठीक है जी? खेलोगे कूदोगे and, you know, पढ़ोगे लिखोगे वाला. So if we are to change that mindset, it only has to happen from a top-down approach. प्रधानमंत्री अकेले तो नहीं बोल सकते esports को sports बनाना है हमने. Now the mandate and onus sits with the states. What's an approach that, you know, you would like to take and build the grassroots, because that's something you've been part of?
So see, the only issue in treating, I know it's a state subject, but my problem is when you make a team, especially for esports, it's never from one single state, guys. The team is always made among people, different people from different states, because it's a virtual game. Of course, you do on-ground events, but those numbers are much smaller. Unlike cricket, where you have to play on the same field. So you are from that type, but this is a virtual game. Correct. So I think what states need to understand, and basically what the help we need from state governments is basically having it part of their, like they have sports quota. Na? I want them to have esports quota also. Let the colleges, students be admitted into colleges based on their esports performance. As I remember, the reason I got admission in the first university I applied was courtesy my sports quota. Why can't it be done for esports? So basically two blockers we have in terms of esports is parents and teachers. That's what we have been discussing for, I think, last 4 years. Those are the two blockers, because kids are playing. Only difference is they are playing with their doors closed now. Or they play 1 hour with their doors open and rest of the time they play with doors closed. But the way the success would be for us as the industry stakeholders, when their parents go and tell them, have you studied for 4 hours? Yes. Go practice for 2 hours. I think that's when at least my job is done. That's what I've been telling Abhishek also for last 5 years since I've been known him. That's when I say my job is done. But that whole thing has to come via state government, giving esports quota, basically encouraging gaming as a esports as a sport. That is the only recognition which is missing. Yes, right now universities are doing it, but it's only being made part of their major fest. It's not part of their normal schedule. That's the only place I would like to see.
I think I appreciate those pointers, and I will duly take a few seconds to commend at least the states where one has personally had the experience of receiving great acceptability. And I will very warmly invite both yourself and Shiva as well, even to Bihar, which has not just adopted e-sport as a sport, but today it is officially part of the sports calendar of the Sports Authority. And exactly as you rightly suggested, Anurag, what they've done is that every participating kid receives the official certificate from the government, which is you are a recognized esports athlete. Then there are multiple tiers of competition that will continue. There are 4 large tournaments being planned. But as I always keep saying, you know, one has been privileged enough to be in a situation where, you know, we have been able to receive that adoption on the state side. The idea is our country is very diverse. Our country is really large. I see that Crafton, not too long back, met with the Gujarat government as well. That's also another state we've been consulting for some time. And for certain, I can suggest that, you know, they will take a very decisive step in adopting esports. Needless to say, you've done some fantastic work, Shiva, with the Tamil Nadu government, Karnataka government. We've been part of some conversations in Tamil Nadu as well. They've taken some important measures. I see that the India opportunity definitely invites multiple stakeholders to come together. And I also feel very importantly that sometimes it's important that the esports entrepreneurs, ecosystem stakeholders, not limited to tournament organizers and operators, team owners, investors, the likes of Rajan, publishers, Sean, etc., must all be put in front of the government. Today, what we notice is that there are multiple conversations happening on the state side under AVGC. But AVGC by itself is a massive topic of conversation, right?
G is only one part of the AVGC. Forget esports.
And within G, then therefore comes to a part where we're talking esports, which is a very focused discussion. So I would say definitely the government is taking some very positive measures and steps in this direction. But one final message from both of you gentlemen, if at all, that you would like to sort of convey to the larger stakeholders. We are at a CII convening. My assumption is that deliberations from here are usually submitted to the government. Shiva, starting with you. To the government. You already mentioned you need a regulatory outlook. You already mentioned that publishers need to sort of...
No, like I mentioned, like you mentioned at AVGC. So I'm also part of AVGC committee in Tamil Nadu working on the policies, helping government on multiple things. As well as we are helping Kannada also. So one thing is, Indian government already mentioned it's AVGC and gaming is under AVGC committee. And if come under like esports and everything, under gaming, there has to be a vertical of esports. And in that, again, I'm saying there should be a regulated body where one voice very important. That voice will take all, there are different stakeholders like you mentioned, publishers, game developer, tournament organizers, players, team owners. There are multiple stakeholders, but we need a one common voice. That common voice has to take to the government. And we just focusing on that to make it happen. Hopefully before Olympics, I mean the esports Olympics going to happen in Riyadh, I think we will delve into that. Once it's done, like everything will be sorted and we don't want to talk 100 things in 100 different ways. There will be a one single voice which take all our vision everywhere.
Fantastic, Shiva. Anurag, your final sort of parting thoughts.
So I think we need to, I know India is a federal structure, but I would see more concrete steps coming from center government first and then state governments adopting them, because that's how everything has worked in the country. So I want more steps or clarity coming from the center first, then of course states will adopt it. That's my whole point on this.
Fantastic. I would invite CII to take formal submissions on behalf of all of us, so that our voices are suitably heard in the right corridors. This much I can say that the government is very positive on esports today, as against they were maybe a year ago. And with about 14, 15 months left, we must have medal winners from India come the esports Olympics. So Madhurima and the entire CII team, let's get together, have such convenings, but very focused submissions to the government. Thank you so much for inviting all of us here.
Thank you so much.